When you enter the toxic atmospheres in today's fires and other emergencies, your life literally depends on self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA. In this program, you will see SCBA basics. The learning objectives are to identify two types of SCBA used in the fire service and the main components of positive pressure SCBA, to describe the features and functions of SCBA components, including the harness assembly and air cylinder assembly, the regulator assembly, and the facepiece assembly, to identify safety precautions and features of SCBA, to identify the hazardous atmospheres that require SCBA protection, and to describe SCBA limitations as they relate to the wearer, the equipment, and the air supply. The fire service uses two types of self-contained breathing apparatus, closed circuit and open circuit. Closed circuit SCBA use pure oxygen. They recirculate air through a closed system, filtering carbon dioxide from exhaled air and adding oxygen. Open circuit SCBA is the most frequently used type in the fire service. The open circuit unit works with compressed air. A positive pressure system is used to prevent outside contaminants from getting into the facepiece. Positive pressure SCBA keeps pressure in the user's facepiece slightly higher than atmospheric pressure. Positive pressure helps prevent contaminants from entering the facepiece in case a leak develops. You should be familiar with the four basic components of SCBA. The harness or backpack assembly, which holds the air cylinder assembly on your back, the air cylinder assembly, which contains the supply of breathing air, the regulator assembly, which controls the flow of air, and the facepiece assembly. The facepiece assembly keeps safe breathing air in and protects the wearer's face from heat and hazardous atmospheres. Let's take a look at each assembly in greater detail. The harness assembly has adjustable straps and a backpack to hold the cylinder on your back. Adjustable straps provide a custom fit regardless of firefighter size. All units should have waist straps. Waist straps should always be worn and buckled. They help distribute the weight of both the air cylinder and the pack to the hips and keep the cylinder from moving from side to side. Properly worn waist straps help prevent back injuries and falls and make it less likely for the cylinder to get caught on obstructions inside the scene. The second component of the SCBA system is the air cylinder assembly. This includes the cylinder, cylinder valve, and pressure gauge. Air cylinders come in several sizes. Air cylinders are rated for 30, 45, or 60 minutes of breathing air. But in most cases, the operating time under conditions on the fire ground will be much less. It is not unusual for firefighters to use up a cylinder rated for 30 minutes in 15 minutes or less. The cylinder is the heaviest part of the breathing apparatus, since it must be strong enough to safely contain the high pressure of compressed air. Cylinders may be steel, aluminum, or composite. Composite cylinders have an aluminum inner shell reinforced by carbon fiber, fiberglass, or Kevlar. Depending on the manufacturer and materials used in construction, the unfilled cylinder can weigh as little as 4.5 pounds or 2 kilograms, or as much as 30 pounds or 14 kilos. Low-pressure cylinders are rated at 2,216 pounds per square inch, while high-pressure cylinders have 4,500 psi. At the cylinder neck is a shutoff valve and pressure gauge that shows the amount of pressure in the cylinder. The regulator assembly includes a regulator, pressure reducing device, remote pressure gauge, and low pressure alarm. In positive pressure SCBA, air travels from the cylinder through a high pressure hose to a pressure reducing device. This first stage regulator lowers the air pressure from the level in the cylinder. Another hose carries air from the pressure reducing device to the regulator, which reduces the pressure again to that of ordinary breathing air. The regulator also controls airflow to meet the requirements of the wearer. When you inhale, the pressure in the facepiece is lowered. A valve moves inward, tilting just enough to allow low pressure airflow from the regulator into the facepiece. A bypass valve provides air from the pressure reducing device in the event of regulator failure. The bypass valve may be called a purge valve on some SCBA that use it to bleed pressure from the system. You should know how to read and interpret the remote pressure gauge on your regulator assembly. The remote pressure gauge tells you how much air is left in the air cylinder at any given time. The gauge may show pounds per square inch, or PSI, or a percentage or fraction of the amount of air left. Make sure that the remote pressure gauge reading is consistent with the cylinder gauge before every use. SCBA made after 2002 have a heads-up display that allows firefighters to monitor air supply from inside the facepiece. Firefighters must also train in how to handle a regulator failure with their department's SCBA system. Most systems have a normal mode and emergency bypass mode. If the regulator is failing, the first stage regulator will supply air directly through the bypass valve. All SCBA have a low pressure alarm that will activate when the cylinder pressure drops to about 25% of its capacity. In most SCBA, this alarm affects at least two of your senses. Most SCBA systems combine an audible alarm with either a visual or vibrating alarm. In the past, this alarm was used as a signal that firefighters should begin their exit from the hazardous zone. Today, the fire service recognizes that this practice leaves little room for air or impediments during egress. In FPA 1404, the SCBA training standard requires firefighters to be trained to manage their air supply so they can exit the hazardous atmosphere before the low pressure alarm sounds. Low air reserves are reserved for emergencies. The facepiece assembly consists of a head harness, a facepiece lens, and in some units an exhalation valve and nose cup. The facepiece is held securely against your face by the head harness with adjustable straps, net, or other arrangements. The facepiece lens is made of clear safety plastic that's connected to a flexible rubber mask. In some units, a one-way exhalation valve exhausts air into the environment as you exhale. This prevents the accumulation of carbon dioxide inside the mask. A speech diaphragm allows you to communicate through the facepiece. Some SCBA have voice amplification systems to make through-the-mask communications easier to hear. Different temperatures inside and outside the facepiece can cause the facepiece lens to get cloudy. Internal fogging happens when the lens is cool, causing humid exhaled breath to condense on the inside of the lens. A nose cup helps deflect exhaled air away from the lens to prevent internal fogging. Some SCBA manufacturers incorporate anti-fogging chemicals in the facepiece lens. If not, follow the manufacturer's directions for applying anti-fogging chemicals. Every component and function of your self-contained breathing apparatus has been designed with specific safety features. Here are some important SCBA safety tips to keep in mind. First, use only positive pressure SCBA. OSHA and the NFPA require that only positive pressure breathing apparatus be used in the fire service. Several companies manufacture open-circuit SCBA. Different companies use different design features and different mechanical specifications. Don't substitute interchangeable parts from component assemblies. Substitutions simply aren't worth the compromises they cause. The Personal Alert Safety System, or PASS device, is an emergency device designed to sound an alarm if a firefighter is motionless, unconscious, or in some other type of distress. SCBA have integrated PASS devices that activate automatically when SCBA is in use. NFPA 1500 requires that all firefighters be wearing an activated PASS device when using SCBA.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
Another emergency feature incorporated in SCBA made after 2002 is a Rapid Intervention Crew Universal Air Connection known as the RIC UAC. In some departments, RIC is abbreviated as RIT for Rapid Intervention Team. The UAC is designed to help rapidly refill the air supply of a downed firefighter from an independent rescue cylinder or high-pressure breathing air line. OSHA and NFPA 1500 require that firefighters wear SCBA whenever they are in any atmosphere categorized as immediately dangerous to life and health, or IDLH. The interior of a burning building is classified as an IDLH atmosphere. You should never enter the interior of a structure fire without SCBA protection. The four most common hazards associated with fires and other emergencies include oxygen deficiency, elevated temperatures, smoke, and toxic atmospheres in fires and non-fire emergencies. Fires create oxygen-deficient atmospheres because combustion consumes oxygen. It also produces toxic gases that can displace or dilute the available oxygen. Inhaling air at the elevated temperatures in a fire can burn delicate tissues in the respiratory tract. The atmospheres in fires can become so hot that one breath without SCBA protection can kill a firefighter. The composition of what we call smoke depends on what is burning, but smoke in a typical fire contains a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and fine particles of carbon, gases, and other matter. In many cases, it is the combined effect of inhaling many irritants and toxic gases in smoke that's most dangerous. Inhaled toxic gases have several harmful effects on the lungs and in the bloodstream. Let's take a look at some of the most commonly found toxic gases at fire scenes. More fire deaths occur from carbon monoxide than from any other toxic product of combustion. CO is colorless, odorless, and is present with every fire. Carbon monoxide is produced by incomplete combustion, so fires with poor ventilation and inefficient burning create higher levels of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide crowds oxygen from the blood. This leads to hypoxia, or oxygen starvation of the brain and heart, followed by death. Dizziness, nausea, headache, vomiting, and cherry red skin are common signs of carbon monoxide poisoning, but the effects vary in different people. Firefighters can be suffering the effects of CO exposure even though they feel no symptoms. After exposure, the administration of pure oxygen is the best immediate treatment. Even if revived quickly, firefighters so exposed should not be allowed to return to firefighting until they are examined by a physician. When wood or organic matter burns in an atmosphere with normal levels of oxygen, it produces high levels of carbon dioxide, or CO2. Carbon dioxide is also used as an extinguishing agent. Firefighters should anticipate high carbon dioxide levels when a CO2 total flooding system has been activated. CO2 systems are designed to extinguish a fire by eliminating the oxygen. They have the same effect on an exposed firefighter's respiratory system. Hydrogen chloride is colorless, but is easily detected by its distinct odor and the intense irritation of the eyes and respiratory tract that it causes. Combustion of plastics and polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, produce hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen cyanide interferes with breathing at the cellular and tissue levels. Hydrogen cyanide can also be absorbed through the skin. Because wool, nylon, polyurethane foam, rubber, and paper give off this toxic gas when burned, HCN is usually present at fires that involve common interior furnishings. Phosgene is produced during combustion of common household items such as refrigerants. When phosgene mixes with moisture in the lungs and bronchial tubes, it decomposes into hydrochloric acid. The full poisonous effect is not evident for several hours after exposure. The overhaul stage is especially dangerous because breathing apparatus is sometimes removed and toxic fumes tend to linger in the room. Concrete can remain hot enough to decompose the plastics in telephone or electrical cables. Hazardous atmospheres can also be found in many situations in which fire is not involved. Oxygen-deficient atmospheres occur in confined spaces as well as in fires. The normal oxygen level of air is 21%. At oxygen concentration levels below 18%, thinking and muscle control are impaired, making it difficult for firefighters to escape. Any atmosphere that has less than a 19.5% oxygen concentration requires SCBA protection. In addition to being liberated in the combustion of plastics, nitrogen dioxide is commonly called silo gas because it is frequently present when farmers are overcome in silos and grain bins. Nitrogen dioxide has a strong pungent odor and irritates the nose and throat. Because of the growing number of hazardous materials used in industry and shipped via air, rail, and highway, virtually any site can be the location of a hazardous materials incident. Placards and labeling on buildings, containers, and commercial transportation vehicles offer clues to potentially toxic atmospheres. If your department is equipped with air monitoring systems, they should be used to directly identify hazardous atmospheres. SCBA should be worn at the scene until the exact nature of the atmosphere can be identified.
Ready?
There are 3 types of limitations that affect the proper use of protective breathing apparatus: the limitations of the wearer, the equipment, and the air supply. Limitations of the wearer include physical, medical, and mental factors. Physically, you are affected by your fitness, agility, and even your facial features. There is a direct correlation between sound physical conditioning and the extent to which the air supply can be stretched. Good agility allows you to overcome mobility limitations imposed by the SCBA equipment. Facial hair and even the shape and contour of your face can affect your ability to get a good face piece-to-face seal. Medically, you face additional limitations. Good motor coordination is necessary for using any protective breathing apparatus efficiently. Muscular and skeletal conditioning allows you to wear protective equipment and to perform the necessary tasks. Good cardiovascular fitness helps prevent heart attacks, strokes, and other stress-related problems while wearing SCBA on the job. A fit firefighter will maximize the operating time from the limited air supply in SCBA. Mentally, there are 3 challenges facing every user of protective breathing equipment. Are you adequately trained? You must be knowledgeable in every aspect of SCBA use. How self-confident are you? Belief in your own abilities will have a positive effect on your performance. How is your emotional control? The ability to maintain control in an excited or high-stress environment can reduce your chances of making a serious mistake. Scba is designed to keep you breathing in a hostile environment, but the equipment itself presents some limitations. First, Scba reduces visibility, especially peripheral vision. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it isn't there. Get in the habit of verifying the landscape by rotating your vision a complete 180 degrees.
What?
Second, Scba decreases your ability to communicate. Voice amplification systems have helped overcome this challenge, but a system of command and acknowledgement should be implemented, tested, and used while wearing protective breathing apparatus. When fully pressurized, the basic Scba unit adds 25 to 35 pounds or 11 to 16 kilograms of weight that you must carry. Physical fitness conditioning may be the only way to compensate for this additional weight. Third, the increased weight and movement restrictions caused by the harness straps reduce mobility and the ability to get through tight spaces.
Okay, back out.
Finally, the available air supply is a critical limitation in the use of Scba.
Ready?
The actual operating time that your air supply provides will depend on several factors. These factors include the amount of physical exertion, the condition of the equipment, the cylinder pressure before use, and even the training and level of experience of the user. Each firefighter must develop an acute awareness of his or her consumption rate of the air supply whenever wearing Scba. Remember, know how much air you have at all times and know the point of no return. The point of no return is when you have enough air to reach the exit of the hazardous atmosphere without depending on your emergency air supply. This program has presented an overview of self-contained breathing apparatus. You have seen types of Scba used in the fire service and the main components of positive pressure Scba, including the harness assembly, the air cylinder assembly, the regulator assembly, and the facepiece assembly. We have shown the safety precautions and features you must know, hazardous atmospheres that require Scba protection in fire and non-fire emergencies, and the limitations of Scba.
What?
Protective breathing apparatus is extremely critical to the well-being of all firefighters. Your lungs and respiratory tract are more vulnerable to injury during firefighting than any other part of your body. Failure to master these objectives today could lead to failed rescue attempts, firefighter injuries, or even fatalities tomorrow.